Greetings, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in this beautiful world you may be. Today, I have a very special treat. My new good friend, Kathrin, from Germany. She's currently in lovely Spain. We just had an amazing conversation. We connected a couple of weeks ago, but we've been, busy. And finally, we were able to find the perfect time to make this podcast happen. It's going to be an amazing one because we just had an incredible heart-to-heart conversation even before starting. I can spend an easy 10 minutes just introducing her because she's got a wonderful mission, a beautiful story and all that, but I will just summarize it by saying that she's doing a lot of good work and good beautiful work in this world. She's she's got a beautiful motto, which is rising by deepening. We're going to cover that in a moment. She's a tremendously successful person from a professional side. She's an advocate for female empowerment and believes that it is our fierce feminine intelligence, our embodied intuition, our compassionate hearts, and our soul-inspired leadership that will spark a revolution and pave the way to collective healing. And there's one thing that she mentioned, and that she's doing that's absolutely phenomenal. I love that, not just for branding, but for the mission behind it, which is women rising. We're going to talk about all that in a moment. So I can talk for hours just about all of that, but it's going to be best for her to do it because I don't want to just butcher it. So, Kathrin, my friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Payman. So good to be here. Thank you for your invitation.
It's my honor, my pleasure. First of all, for people that don't know you, who's Kathrin?
Wow. That's a big question to begin with, right?
The best question.
Yeah, it's a big question because I would say I'm on a journey to finding that out. I would say I'm an ever unfolding mystery. And everything really about this question is important and significant to me because my work is all about this question. I help women deepening into who they are beneath all the roles and stories and conditioning and trauma that they have received in the past. And so if you ask me on a more mundane level, I would say I have, of course, many roles that I have assigned to. I'm a mom of a 2-year-old daughter. I'm a transpersonal psychologist. I'm a certified life and leadership coach. I'm a university lecturer. I do all kinds of things. And what they have in common, it's really all about transformation. It's about transformation by really reconnecting with who we are at our cores. And I've done that in the corporate arena. I have done years and years of leadership development with top executives, which was always deep dive leadership development, personal development, about self-leadership, and about basically the same question, a little bit more covered maybe, but nevertheless. And now I have focused mainly on the work with female leaders and visionaries and change makers that really want to take their work and themselves further by really reconnecting and remembering and coming to a place where they respond to life with sovereignty and true self-worth and self-love, and that want to make an impact that is really not just in terms of financial means great, but that has really a benefit for the whole.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. There's a lot of we will talk about in a moment, but before we start, I want to start my podcast usually with fun questions because it's supposed to be fun. So fun question, but also having heart-to-heart conversations. So what makes you happy?
Oh, seeing my daughter laugh and smile, it just makes me absolutely happy. Yeah.
And what makes you smile?
What makes me smile? Well, there are so many things that make me smile, but again, I don't know why, but my daughter comes up so many times right now because she's just starting to talk. So everything that comes out of her mouth is just, it makes me smile really, because it's so funny, and the way she expresses herself. And it's such a, you know, there's such a depth and beauty in seeing this little human being grow and show her personality that is already there. You know, it's it makes me smile.
That's amazing, especially kids in the first 2-3 years. That's when they are the most sweetest and the most adorable. Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And so completely centered, you know, that she's herself, you know, there's no conditioning on top yet. So it's beautiful.
Absolutely. What makes you angry and sad?
Injustice. Especially really, I think, because I have become such an advocate for female empowerment, when I see in how many countries, but even in the so-called civilized Western world, how many women are still really confronting injustice on a daily basis, and have really challenges to stand up for themselves and being seen for who they truly are. Because what I find is that many women still, and I have had the same experiences, if you're really true to who you are and standing in your truth, you're still touching a collective no, even in our modern world, you know. And it's almost it requires a lot of strength and internal power to confront this reactions from the outside world, to be who you are in this world.
Absolutely. Yes, I noticed that as well in some places. As I said, I lived in 10 countries and 4 continents. Some countries it's really bad. Yes. What scares you?
Losing someone I love. I'm really scared about that. And again, you know, being a fairly new mom with this 2-year-old, that's probably the biggest fear. Like, once you become a mom, I feel like it's like the fear is in the package. that your heart is just, you know, is cracked open in a way you can never imagine, but at the same time there is a fear rising that I never knew before. So it takes a lot of trust to just trust life, that she's safe, you know.
Yes, agreed. You know, when we're kids growing up, everyone asks us, parents, teachers, family, so Kathrin, what do you want to become when you grow up? What was your answer back then as a kid?
I wanted to be a priest. I wanted to be a priest. Yeah. I also, you know, I must say, like, I've always had very deep spiritual experiences from a very early age on, despite the fact that my parents were not very religious. I mean, like, I grew up in a Christian household, but it was not a really lived practice. But I have had all these amazing mystical experiences from an early age on. And I, for example, didn't understand at all why women couldn't be priests in the church. So it was something that really pissed me off as a child, so to say. I guess that's it.
Can you share some of those mystical experiences with us? If not, that's okay.
No, there's definitely something that I can share. I mean, probably the most profound one was when I was 5 years old. And it was, I remember that I didn't really feel very good in this world. Like, I felt the world to be very cold. I don't know, really physically cold as well. And I remember crying a lot. I felt a lot of pain, not so much about myself. Like, I was so open that I cried a lot about the world. Really wow. True. Like, and I prayed a lot for the world, and I cried a lot for the world. And I remember a moment where I was begging God to take me out again. And wow. And I said, you know, I didn't imagine to be like that. I don't like this here. And in this moment, I received this unbelievable love, and I was wrapped in this beautiful light, and I was basically shown images of myself as a grown-up woman. And I saw myself speaking in front of large groups, and things that I partly do already now. And I could see it wasn't important about what I said. It was very interesting. It was about something in my voice and about how the nervous system relaxed, that I could see happening in the room. And it was something that, of course, I didn't understand with my 5-year-old mind. But what I understood was that what I was here to do was important, and that I was needed, and that I'm not here by coincidence, and that everything, the message that was embedded in this very strong vision was that there are no mistakes. You are exactly where you're meant to be. And you are so loved. That was what I felt, I'm so loved. I'm so safe. And it was really something that carried me through all my childhood. That wasn't always easy. And my youth and everything. And yeah, so that was a very, very, very strong experience for me.
Wow. And when you saw yourself as a powerful and influential woman talking in front of people, do you think that was the future you? Was that something from the past that you saw?
It's a very interesting question, because actually I had memories from past lives, and no, that was
Wow.
very much me in the future, and I saw myself like
Wow.
very much the way I look now. So I didn't,
Amazing.
I have it very clear in front of my inner eyes. I can still see the images that I saw then, and I would say it was my future self. Yeah.
Amazing. Did you share that with anyone, family, friends, relatives?
Later on with friends, yes. And I have
Mhm.
now, since I've started to do more of this work, I've started to tell this story a little bit more often, so I'm a little bit more comfortable sharing it. In the past I
Sure.
wasn't, with
Sure.
very intimate experience, of course, and you don't
Hmm.
want to get people
Labeled, yeah.
reacting, yes, so
Hmm.
weirdly to it. um I never really talked with my parents about it. I think they heard it once when I spoke about it in a different place, but no, not really.
Okay. Wow. And when we were in school, when we were in school as student, what was your favorite subject?
German. I'm German and I like to write. So that was
Wow.
something also, like I started to write poetry with the age of
Wow.
11. And
Amazing.
when I was 13, I actually won a literature prize. So it was basically a surprise, because my father sent the stories that I wrote in school off to to award, blah, 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 thing. And and it got chosen to be like, I was chosen as an aspiring writer and everything. And that, yeah, writing and language, really language expression, was always very important to me. Actually, there's an interesting story about this, because the first 2 books I ever bought, I think they tell a lot about who I am, in my core. The first book was actually a book on meditation, and that was something, again, from a different place, that I just knew. I don't know, I read this word somewhere. I was about 10 or 11 at that time, and I
Wow.
just suddenly knew I needed to know what that is and what it meant. And so I went into this book, like, little bookshop, because I grew up in a very small little town, and there was only one bookshop, and I went there and I asked for a book on meditation, very nervous, of course. And they looked at me and they asked me, so is this for your parents? And I said yes, because I didn't want to admit that I wanted to have it, right? And so they gave me this book that I still have it, that is really not really a beginner's guide. It was like really a almost scientific piece of work about meditation. And the other book that I bought around the same time, was on a flea market, was a very old book, written in the old language of German, like the letters are still like in this old
Hmm.
style, and it was poetry. It was poetry from
Wow.
a couple of centuries, German poetry. And I think these 2 books are very well describing who I am, because it was all about, from a very young age on, about deepening and about inner work and about exploring this inner world. And at the same time, I was always in love with language and how to express what I have found inside. So I guess there's somewhere inside of me, there is this writer still waiting to be born. But we'll see what comes.
That's amazing. Wow. Buying a meditation book at what, 11 years old? Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. It started early. Started early.
Wow, that's it's good. Yeah. Wow. And when you were in school, what was your least favorite subject?
Math.
Me
So
too.
everything, yeah, so everything related. Like, I mean, I must say, to be honest, I was definitely a student that liked to go to school because I love learning, and that has never changed. Like, I still love
Hmm.
learning, and I love to kind of, if I could go on and just study one degree after the other, because I just love to learn, but and to study. But yeah, when it comes to numbers, I'm not very keen on that.
Yeah. Same here. Wow. Now looking back at your path, at your life, how would you describe your path? Would you say that once you've finished school, was it very straightforward, smooth? You got on one path and you kept on that path, or was it like twist and turned along the way? Or describe your path and how did you get to where you are?
Yeah. Again, I would say there are two dimensions that were happening in parallel. So there was one that was very twisted, and that was the one that was more visible from the outside. And that was really about kind of trying to find my way, like so many others do. And I started at university, studying. I think the first thing I started quite a few degrees, to be honest, and that's what I mean. And then I stopped again when I realized, no, that's not it. So yeah, it took me many twists and turns. I even, at some point, I even stopped everything and I decided to go into the performing arts. I got trained as an actress as well.
Wow.
And I also performed as an actress on stage. But then I had this one specific event, actually in the US. It was at a conference, and it was a transformational conference from a friend of mine. And I had this really strong inner experience where I was really called to go onto stage and to speak. And I couldn't explain it, but I was like, I couldn't sleep anymore. I was like in a really weird state. And I went to my friend who was the host of this conference. And I said, I don't know what I'm supposed to say, but I need to be on this stage. and,
Wow.
and he looked at me, and I was so scared at that moment. And he looked at me and he said, well, okay, I trust you. And I was like, oh my God. And then eventually he made space for me, and he said, there's this one lady and she wants to speak. And he invited me onto stage. I thought I'm going to die. But that moment I was on the stage, really, really, because I really, up to this point, I didn't know what I was about to say. Yeah. But once I was on the stage and I opened my mouth, something just flew through me and I started to speak from a very different place. And the people were in tears and I got a standing
Wow.
ovation. And I was like, and I was standing there. And in the end, I was so clear suddenly that it's not about acting. Like, I'm not supposed to act on a stage. Like, I might be on a stage, but I'm not supposed to be acting. And so I went down from the stage and I just stopped it. And I just said, that's not it. So, that's what I mean. From the outside, there were many twists and turns and even harsh stops. But at the same time, on a deeper level, there was a very clear path or direction. And that had always to do with this, spiritual leadership, I would even say, or like transformational capacity of mine, that, holding space for others as well. Like, when I asked my friends at some point, where do you see me? They said, you're the born coach. It's no question about that. You have always been a coach to everyone around you. So it was just about me recognizing it myself, really, I believe. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. You mentioned that when you were a young girl, you had this vision of you speaking in front of a big crowd. And when you just mentioned you going on stage on that in that event, did you connect the two? Did you get any recollection of
Yeah.
the two
Yes,
being
of course. I
similar?
mean, yes and no, right? And it was the first time that something like that happened, like
Mm-hmm.
in a context like that, and it felt so natural. I think that was what was interesting about it. So it didn't
Mm,
feel it didn't feel foreign or strange to me. It was like, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. My whole body said yes, yes. And of course my mind got crazy because my ego was wanting to control the situation. And I still get this, from time to time, even before I enter a podcast like this, it's like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say? Of course, I do have these moments too. And I guess it's normal, and it will probably stay like that, because it's, there are always two levels of consciousness operating at the same time. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wow. That must have been quite an experience. I can imagine. Wow. All right. So I'm sure you've heard the saying, change your story, change your life. And by story, I mean what we keep telling ourselves in our mind all day long. And I'm sure, like anyone else, you must have had to change your story at one point in your life to get back to the right path, to get closer to your goals and dreams. So when you had to change your story, how did you do it? Was it did you do it through the help of a friend, through some courses, a book, a mentor? Tell us about the process that allowed you to change your story, to basically change your life for the better.
Basically, all you just said was part of it.
Mm-hmm.
There were some books that were transformative for me, but there were many courses and mentors that were very important on my path. I'm a really strong believer in the value of mentors and coaches as well, because I've experienced it for myself, that sometimes it's just so helpful to have someone mirror things back to you that you cannot see for yourself, especially when it's about really your essence. That is sometimes so hard for ourselves to see, right? So yeah, there were moments like that. There was one moment, for example, I remember very well, in a leadership development program that later I became a facilitator for, but at that time I was attending as a participant, and there was an exercise. So we did a lot of shadow work in that seminar, and there was an exercise where it was about looking at your shadow self and at your persona. And you had to pick people that you associate more with the shadow side and more with the persona, like a character that you look up to, that you aspire to be, and someone that you don't want to be like. All right. And I picked Marianne Williamson as my persona. I thought like, wow. She brings together all these amazing qualities, from being a fantastic writer, a spiritual teacher, a wonderful speaker, so passionate, so informed in social justice and so many things. So she was like absolutely clear. And then when it was about the shadow aspect, I picked my mother, and not her as a whole person, but certain elements, or let's say qualities. And I remember the facilitator saying to me, Kathrin, that is quite, working with someone so close to us sometimes can have quite strong effects. And I said, no, I want to do it. And, I go for it. And then we had this exercise where we had to write down, so what is it that what is it that your persona is teaching you? What is it that you admire about her? And I wrote that down. And then it was about, and what is it that you could learn from your shadow? What did you learn from it? And I wrote it down. And then I looked at it and I saw that I had written down the same things.
Wow.
And it was such a moment of profound insight for me. It completely changed my story, because I had told myself for such a long time, oh, my mother is so difficult and this and that, and all the stories that we hold about our parents, and why we cannot do what we do and who we are and la la la. So of course I had that too, like this victim story, right? And when I looked at this sheet of paper, I was struck by lightning, because I had a migraine on the spot. I've never had a migraine in my life. I had to throw up. Sorry to say that, but I really had. It was a full embodied boom,
explosion.
And yes, like nothing made sense suddenly. I was like, wait a second, how can what I found so difficult actually lead to exactly where I want to be? And that was like really eye-opening for me. So it's exactly what you said before we started the podcast, when you said, sometimes the biggest challenges are our biggest gifts, because this is where we learn the most and where we are actually called to become who we want to be and who we are here to be in this world.
Absolutely. Wow. So many topics that we can talk about, but one thing, we will come to that in a moment. You mentioned something very powerful about mentors. and we all need
Yeah.
mentors. How did you get your first mentor?
How did I get my first mentor? I really need to think back now. Who was my first mentor?
Other than your parents?
Yeah. My parents. Yes and no. I would say, of course,
No.
I learned a lot from my parents, but they weren't my mentors. No, I wouldn't
Yeah.
set them into this category. But yes, I'm thinking of a person, and actually, it was the person that led this leadership development course, and that became a great mentor in my life. And I owe a lot to him. His name is Dr. John Scherer. Maybe some people know him because he's quite known in the organizational development and leadership development arena.
Sorry, what's his name? Dr. what?
John Scherer. I
Can you
can
spell
send
that,
it to you.
please?
Yeah, SCHERER. Scherer.
Shirani. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And he has written a book that became actually I think like spiritual business book bestseller once many years back. It's called 5 Questions That Change Everything. And this leadership development course that I'm a facilitator for myself is based on these 5 questions. And these questions are: what confronts you? What am I bringing? Or what confronts me? What am I bringing? What runs me? That goes into this deeper layer.
Love
what
that.
calls me? What calls me? And what will unleash me? And these 5 questions are so comprehensive to really take you on a journey. And so he became a very strong mentor in my life. And I met him on a conference. He was a speaker, and
Beautiful.
we connected after his speech, and we just, these moments when you recognize each other, that was such a moment. And we became very close friends, even though he's in his 80s.
Wow.
And yeah, that was him.
That sounds like an amazing book. I just wrote down the title. I'll definitely try to get it online. Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. Somewhere we can talk. I think that this could be like a conversation like that can go on and on for hours and hours, but we have to be, So let's talk now about your business. What's your business? Tell us about what you do.
Yeah. So my brand is called Women Rising, and Women Rising is really so much more than a brand for me. For me, it's a movement, and it's really about igniting a revolution, so to say, and a divine feminine revolution, because I really want to help women to rise and to step into this power that is completely anchored in who they are at their core. I've done a lot of research around, also academic research around the dark feminine or the fierce feminine. So all these aspects of the feminine wholeness that have been cast out and suppressed within ourselves and also in society and culture, because they appear to be too threatening. And I was really interested in learning about these parts in ourselves and understanding them better, and also understanding what it takes to reclaim them. Because I believe that women, or like the feminine, so to say, it's an archetype, of course, but the feminine has been a little bit too reduced to this this idea that is all about passive and receiving and loving and gentle and soft and yielding, because there's also another part in the feminine, and that was kind of a little bit forgotten in this whole story. And that becomes very actually obvious when you give birth, right? When you give birth, it's not about being gentle and soft. It's really about also the pushing functions of the womb, because like the soft and yielding and gestating and so on is all related to this holding function of your womb. But once you give birth, this pushing, and that's pushing through you, that's a complete different aspect of the feminine. That is what I call the fierce feminine, and it's associated with our capacity to set boundaries, to stand up for something greater than ourselves. But it's also, and that's very interesting, it's also connected to our capacity to be intuitive, to look beyond, to see beyond the veils, to see the unseen. It has also to do with our sensuality as a woman and our sexuality. But even more so with our embodiment, because so many women are so disembodied because they have been taught from a very early age on that it's either not good, you know, or that their bodies are somehow subject, you know, to, or are objectified in a way and are not really theirs to own and to inhabit. And the fourth aspect is really the priestess. It's this aspect of a woman that is really connected to her higher self, to the divine, to source, whatever you like to call it, and that lives in service and that acts out of a place of service. And very often these are women that are very connected to the earth, that are very connected to the cycles of the earth, to the seasons, to nature, to their own cycle as well, and yeah, are living a very self determined, sovereign spirituality. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Um, who would you say is your ideal? So I know that you're serving women, but do you have a very specific section of women you're trying to help? Do you have like, what's your ideal client avatar?
My ideal client avatar. Yeah. You know, I've thought about this a lot. And to be honest, I really believe in the principle of resonance. So I
Mm,
believe that the clients that really feel attracted on a deeper level, they know they are my clients, and the other way around. It's you know, it's soul clients. But the women,
mm,
what they have in common, I can tell you that what they have in common is that they are women that some of them are in high up leadership positions, some are very self-driven entrepreneurs, some are aspiring entrepreneurs, you know, but what they have all in common is they feel called on a deeper level. They feel called to step up, to embody more of who they are. They feel called to free themselves, you know, in some way or the other. Sometimes it's just an internal liberation that they are seeking, but sometimes it's also an outer. So sometimes it's really stepping out of a marriage, just stepping out of a work that doesn't serve them anymore, stepping out of a religion even, you know, and to really live a more self self-authored life
mm.
and leadership as well. And but they all have in common that they feel called on some way. Yeah, I would say that is it.
That's a powerful mission. Tell us an example of um, the most remarkable, inspiring transformation you've seen from a woman that you've helped.
There are so many. It's very hard to compare these stories because everyone is so individual, and the way I work, want to make that very clear, is very individualized. So I'm like, I
Mm,
don't have a template or one specific process that I, you know, put on
mhm,
every single woman, because I really believe that we are all such complex beings, and it requires a very unique style of coaching for each and every woman. But what I can tell you is I have seen beautiful transformations from women that really didn't dare to show themselves, and they came out of the closet, so to say, and they, within 2 or 3 months of working together, they started a business, they deepened their relationship, they changed, completely transformed the relationship they had to themselves. I think this is the major parallel that I see in the results of my clients, is that they change the relationship that they have with themselves. That they suddenly feel good about themselves. They start to reconnect with themselves on a level where they say, I've never felt so good in my body. I've never felt so good in myself. I feel like I'm feeling really powerful. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling fulfilled. And I suddenly know what I'm here to do, you know? And that's beautiful to witness. It's beautiful.
oh, absolutely. Especially
Mm.
when you see someone, because we all have talents. Some of the time, the talents that we are completely, hidden inside of us. So we just, as I told you earlier, we don't believe in them, and we just need someone to just push us, give us that push, and bring, just like a cheerleader. That's what we need. And when we see someone open and blossom like a flower, beautiful flower, see, wow, that's the most amazing thing. It's not about the money you make; it's about the impact, the transformation. And when you see that in
And
front of you,
yeah. Absolutely. And yet, Payman, you know what? I'm definitely an advocate for women having more power and money, because I really
Absolutely.
believe the big money should wander into the hands of women, because, it's about time and it's good. And I'm really also
Hmm.
helping women in creating this financial freedom for themselves, because it's really, once you're really connected to your inner core,
Hmm.
and you come from that place, it's like you are magnetic. You attract a complete different, you attract the clients too, you attract the abundance into your life. And so, oh, I think my daughter is coming home. Let me just check. I might see, essential to what I believe. Yeah. Yeah. So it's really about this. It's also about women having more financial impact and freedom, because that allows them also to make a bigger difference in the world. And the women that I work with,
Absolutely.
they are so good in their hearts. They want to make a difference. They don't just want to, have the money for themselves or out of greed or anything. They want to make a difference. And that's why I really believe we have to kind of think bigger and go bigger with our visions even. And what you said also, I wanna hit on that as well, about cheerleading. Yes, that's part of it. But what I find even more important, before you can go into cheerleading, you have to go into healing. And my
Mm.
work, the work that I do, is very, very deep. It's going way beyond mindset work. It's really deep healing work, but it's done with I do it in a way that is very mindful, so that people don't get stuck in a healing process, because this is what I see happening a lot, that you're processing and processing and processing the past, and you never move out of processing, and then you never really get to do anything. And so it's really about the simultaneous dance of healing and expansion, and it has to go hand in hand. It has to go hand in hand.
Absolutely. That's so crucial, the healing part. Tell us more about the healing, the process of the healing part that you go, that the women that go along your program go along. Tell us about the healing part, because, as in business, it's 90% mindset, mentality, healing, whatever. So that's the most important foundation. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. Well, the mindset operates on the level of the ego mind. So
Hmm.
it's something conscious or even pre-conscious that we can work with. However, when you really want transformation, you need to work on a deeper level than that. That's what I believe, at least. I'm not saying that, mindset work cannot be transformative, but sometimes it's not so sustainable, and it's not like this radical transformations that we see in people. If you want to reach that level, you have to go deeper, and that means we also have to look at the trauma somebody brings. I'm trained for that. I don't recommend every coach to go there, because it's a delicate subject to deal with, and I'm very aware of that. And if I feel like it's going too far into the therapeutic arena, then I'm also sometimes passing someone on to a therapist. But I'm working with that. I'm also trained in Constellation Work, which I think is one of the most powerful tools there is to work with the systemic and ancestral entanglements. Because sometimes, people do all the inner work, do all the mindset work, but still they feel blocked. Still they feel not free to pursue their path or their freedom, and and they still feel, I cannot be successful, I cannot earn money, or I'm not happy in love, right? What is this? And that very often has to do with the family, like the system. I don't know whether you're aware about the systemic principles that are at work in families and also in wider systems, but there are real, so to say, orders, hidden orders, that once we know about them, we understand why we sometimes are trapped in some sort of a loyalty, for example, that doesn't allow us to step out of the system and become really our self-authored, sovereign self. So that's something I'm working with. It's a very powerful tool. I'm also just holding really deep space for emotions, deep emotions I want to surface, because, so many emotions, for most of us, have been pushed down and pushed away and suppressed. And we have learned to kind of operate on a level, that's up here, and
Hmm.
and down here, everything is boiling, and, all the fear and all the anger and we tell ourselves, oh, I'm fine, you know, all is good, blah, blah. But if you really sink into that, you know, then you start to feel what is really going on, and really making space for that and allowing that to surface in a very safe container can be a very healing experience, because suddenly this energy that is also stored and suppressed with this emotions can free itself, and you have so much more energy to do what you're here to do.
I love that. Just like you mentioned, just all this negativity inside of it, just like a bomb, we have to diffuse it. How do you diffuse all this negativity in a safe and productive way?
It's really, you know, for example, anger. You know, many people think that anger is something destructive and negative, or rage, you know, but it's just, it's energy. And there's a lot of like you know, aggression, for example, comes from the Latin word accredi, and accredi means really moving forward. So there is an energy in it that wants to move, right? And if you connect with that, you know, you can actually take the destructive part out, because it's not, that has to do with the level of consciousness, whether you use your anger in a destructive way or in a constructive way. But anger in itself is just an energy to deal with. So it's really about making a safe space for you to experience that anger, to befriend that anger, and to really bringing it out in a way that serves you and serves others.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. Because just like you mentioned, a lot of time, we have a lot of, negative feelings boiled in, and we just say, how are you? I'm okay. I'm okay. But deep down, it's just like almost like a volcano just about to,
Yes.
you can keep it for so long, but at one time it just explodes. You have no control over that. So, yeah. And
Yeah, and
I've,
that's dangerous. That's dangerous as well, because it can show up in symptoms. You know, it can
Mhm.
manifest in some sort of illness. It can show up in some sort of depression. You know, depression is also, you're under pressure. It's like something is, you know, wants to be seen. And by the way, depression is something, because many women struggle with depression. It's especially for women, it can be a very important step on their path to wholeness. Might sound weird, but for women, the process by individuation and self-actualization goes in and down, different than a man's journey to wholeness or path to wholeness. So like you're probably familiar with the hero's myth,
which one? Sorry.
right? From
Which one?
Campbell, hero's journey. Little delay.
Sorry.
The hero's journey. Are you familiar with
Oh,
that
yes.
myth?
Oh, yes.
Are
Oh,
you
yeah. Oh, yeah.
familiar? Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. So that is often used as an example of a self-actualization process. Yeah, but for
Mhm.
women, this process looks a little different. And you know, because the hero is, it's a so-called monomyth. Many have called it the monomyth, as if there is only one myth, and many other myths are kind of part of that one myth. But the hero's journey is very, like, it's very heroic. It's very it's about, you know, as if you have to be heroic to be yourself. You know, I don't believe that. Then it's really about going out into the world to battle something on the outside, to struggle with something on the outside, and to kind of defeat that, and then return back with some more wisdom and truth. And for the women, that's not really the process that they undergo. It's a very, for women, it's very often really a descent into the underworld, and I really literally mean that. And that can be a loss that they experience. There can be a divorce that they have to go through. There can be the end of a career, something that is very profoundly shattering for their ego. And that's when they really go down to meet the dark goddess, as I like to say, within, and where they really have to strip all these layers, you know, that they have put on to conform, to belong, to be a good girl, to be kind of loved and wanted in this world. You know, they have to strip all these layers off. And it's a very painful process to do that on your own, you know, if you're kind of called to do that through a difficult event in your own life. And so you can undergo this process by choosing it, but very few people do. You know, by choosing it, I mean, you go to a mentor and you work on yourself, and you really kind of do this as a conscious descending, and really going there and really looking at what is there in this, in this cave, waiting for me to let go of, and to also find again. Because once you have stripped all these layers, it's like an onion, you're taking off layer after layer, you finally come to this core, and you stand naked in front of yourself, and and there's nothing, there's no pretense, there's nothing, there's just you. And this is where, for many women, the journey really begins, back home
And
to themselves.
and would
Yeah.
you say that women embrace this journey to see themselves, so to speak, naked? Do they feel that some of them might be fearful of that, to see the real themselves? How much of an impact, how much of a factor would you say is fear of seeing themselves for who they truly are, has been in your experience?
How many that fear that, you mean? I didn't understand your
Yes.
question.
How much of a factor is fear of seeing themselves for who they truly are? Because some people, they just don't want to see themselves at, they
Yeah,
might be afraid of what they might see. And
absolutely, absolutely. How often I've heard that, what if I take it all away and there's nothing left, right?
mhm.
Because if you're so far from your inner center, and you're living in your periphery, so to say, and you lead from your periphery, and so of course you're very identified with your persona, that you have built. And it's especially hard for women, for which this persona works very well. If you have a persona that struggles a lot and that is like not very successful in this world, well, the process to come back and to stripping off the layers is a little bit easier. But if everything works well on the outside, but on the inside you feel miserable, then it's a much harder call, so to say, because suddenly you have to admit, first of all, that this what you are pretending on the outside is not real, and that this what is real is really painful, and it's not what other people see when they look at you. So yeah, that requires a lot of courage. Definitely it does.
So you mentioned that, for someone that may not be happy with what they're achieving and they're not maybe that successful, you said it's easier to strip that down. What is the process for that? How do you do that? Let's say, for example, someone right now is listening to this and they feel not as, haven't achieved what the potential they feel that they can reach, and they're just sick and tired of it. How do you help that person? Do you have any tip for that person listening to that they can take away today and implement it, so that they can,
Mhm.
get on the right
So
path?
yeah, so first of all, what I always say is, believe it is possible, first of all, right? Because if you cannot believe that there is something else waiting for you, then it makes
Mhm.
it even harder, right? Believe that everything that you're yearning for, as Rumi says, everything you're yearning for is yearning for you. So it's like,
Mm.
there is a reason for your desire in your heart. There's a reason why, you feel there's more for you. So trust that first of all. And then secondly, what I can offer to your listeners is, when they go to my website, they can download two things. They can download a free workbook on finding their soul inspired purpose. It's a almost 50 pages
Wow.
workbook with a lot of journaling prompts, with a lot of really valuable content to reconnect with this purpose, and with questions that are building on each other. It's almost like you can take yourself through a little workshop by doing this workbook. And the second thing is a meditation that I offer for free as well, which is really a reconnection to what it feels like to becoming this wave of change, and what to connect with, what does your wave look like, if you're becoming this wave. And it's a very beautiful, more maybe subtle process, but it's also, so both of these things are for free on my website, and
What is your
that
website?
might be a start. My website is www.womenrising.co.
Love that. Okay, I'll definitely put that on the show notes. I'll even check it out myself, because I'm always looking to learn and grow, and, because the
Absolutely.
spiritual
Yeah. Yeah. The
the
man
spiritual
can use that as well. Eh?
yeah, spiritual growth has no gender. It's
Yeah.
universal.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And,
Nice.
to be very clear, I'm not hating men at all, right? I have worked, actually, I'm coming from a place where I have mainly worked with men in the past, like especially in the corporate arena. And
Mm-hmm.
I have never, I couldn't even imagine working with women. It was again a very significant event in my life. It's the truth. I'm just honest. It's really true. Like because I have so many, I have my own wounds around that. There's such a big sisterhood wound between women, and competition, and so many things, jealousy, all this kind of thing. So I was a little bit scared of women, to be honest, for a very long time, and so I didn't dare to go into I didn't even no, I didn't even imagine it, to be honest. And then I had this one event many years back, like 7 years, 6 years back now, when I spent a couple of weeks on my own in a monastery. And
Wow.
I meditated a lot, and wrote a lot, and I had another vision. And during that vision, I was actually told that I would have a daughter one day.
Mm.
And with the coming of the daughter, I would remember my purpose, and then my path would really start, so to say. And I asked what, I was excited, and I said, so what is it about? And the two words that were echoing in the back of my mind were women rising.
My God, that's incredible. Wow. I'm
Yes.
getting goosebumps. I wish you could see I'm getting goosebumps right now.
Yeah, I know. And it was really like, and to be honest, I thought like, really? So like, what? Women rising? Really? Me? Like, I couldn't,
Wow.
yeah, I wrote it down and I put it away because I couldn't, at that time, I couldn't imagine working with women. I was like, we'll see. And when I really, this is a true story. When I got pregnant, now 3 years ago, yeah, 3.5 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Yeah. Anyhow, it really, it happened as predicted. I was in a process where I was actually working on my thesis, and I wanted to research synchronicity in leadership, like synchronicity and this whole field around synchronicity in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from the leadership development field, I was like very interested in vertical leadership development and all of that. And I wanted to write about that. And then I was pregnant, and suddenly, I don't know why, it was really from one moment to the next, I had this epiphany, and I just knew I had to change my subject. And really from one day to the other, I did. And I changed the
Wow.
subject. And once my daughter was born, I founded Women Rising. Yeah.
That's amazing. I remember you mentioning just a few minutes ago that you work with Constellation Work. Tell us more about that.
Mhm. Yeah, constellation work is a very interesting method that was originally used within groups, but it can also be used in a one-on-one setting. And it's basically a method that helps you to map your inner dynamics and your family dynamics, or the systems dynamics, because it can also be done for organizations, in the three-dimensional space. So you would, for example, let's take you as an example, you and your father right now. I would say to you in a group setting, I would say, okay, choose someone for you as a representative for you, okay, payment. And you would choose a person, that would represent you. And then I would ask you to choose a representative for your father, and you would choose a representative for your father. And maybe you would also, I would say, depending on the topic that we would want to look at, would say, okay, choose the representative for the illness of your father, and you would choose a representative for the illness of your father. And then you would constellate these three people in the room. The same you can do with little, like I have this little figures. You can do that, on a like a wooden panel. Yeah, you can do the same thing. But with people, it's magical what happens once you constellate these three people in the room. And it's not really, until now, we don't really know why it works and how it works, but for some reason the people start to pick up on the energy of this energy or this person they have, that they are representing, and they start to behave, to think, to feel, to express themselves like the people that they are standing for, or like the topic they are standing for. And suddenly you can see much more, through how these people are behaving, how they are, like in what direction they are looking, what they are saying, how these inner dynamics play out. Because we have all, like on an ego mind, we have our ideas, our stories about things that are going on or that have gone on in the past. But the reality on a deeper level often looks very different. So for example, illness of somebody, of your father, can have a complete different function in the family system. Maybe it's necessary for something in the family. And you can see that within a constellation. You can also see, for example, if a son is carrying the burden for the father, that isn't his to carry. And if you do that, if you carry, for example, the burden, the pain, the suffering from your parents, you're not doing them any favor. And that might sound very harsh, but on a soul level, it's theirs to carry. And it's really about learning how to give back, giving it back to them with love, saying, I give it back to you. I tried to carry it for you, but it's not mine to carry, and I give it back to you. And we see in the constellations how the people and how everything relaxes within the system once the order is restored. Like for example, there's an order in each family, like that is supposed to be there. And for example, if children go into a parent, like are acting as a parentified child, meaning that they are acting as the parent to their parent, again, the order is disturbed, and it creates symptoms, and the child is not free to live his or her life. So these are things that it's a bit complex to explain, but actually by the end of this month, probably end of July, beginning of August, I will offer a free masterclass on that topic. I will actually speak a lot about this systemic principles and this hidden dynamics. And so you can, if you want, you can recommend it to your listeners, and then we will
Absolutely.
hear a little bit more about how it works. It's a bit difficult to explain in 2 sentences. So
Absolutely.
But I hope you got it, like from the message.
Yes, very interesting. I'll definitely check it out. But the reason I'm mentioning this, because when you said constellation, the thing that came to my mind was, I was wondering if it had anything to do with, say, the stars and when we are born, the month, and like the astrological signs or anything like that. Okay.
No, it has nothing to do with that. It's really, actually, it's very fact-based. You would look, for example, at what has happened in your family that was a little bit extraordinary, like were there any losses of children? Was there any accident that happened, where someone died? Was there, what are the family dynamics with divorces? What is, what are the facts? Really the facts. What are the facts in like the generation before you? Did your grandparents, were they in the war? Did they flee the country? Did they have to flee the country? Did they change country? Things like that create effects in a family system, and they are being transferred into the younger generations. So it's like what we see, and we know by now that also genetics has shown that just recently that trauma is being passed on, for example, also genetically, but it's also passed on an energetic level and on an emotional level, of course. And that shows up and displays in how we respond to life and how free we are to respond to life, because often we are just not free enough to respond to life. And so we react from our autopilot. That is not necessarily only the conditioning that we have received from our parents, but it goes even further back.
Wow. Fascinating stuff. Fascinating. I'll definitely have to dig deeper into that. And once you get your masterclass ready, please let me know. I will not only be taking myself, but also definitely helping you, promote it to my list. That's the very least I can do. Very welcome. Wonderful. Wow. Fast. That's what I love the most about my podcast, is connecting with amazing people at the soul level and on a wonderful missions. And the saying, real education starts the moment you leave school. And I fully believe in that. I'm learning new things that you would never even imagine learning in school. I mean, it's wonderful. I just love it. I love it. Connecting with people from all over the world. We can be talking for hours and hours, but we'll definitely have to do like a part 2 in a few months. But let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the theme of this podcast is building impactful businesses. That is, businesses that are contributing and back. For example, myself, I'm building a brand launching soon on a crowdfunding platform. And for each unit I sell, I will be donating a pair of eyeglasses to someone in need. And there's a lot of ways that people are contributing and to cause they're passionate to their hearts. So, what would you say for you, Kathrin? What cause are you most passionate about?
It's really about girls' education and
Mm,
really about women. So it's definitely about women rising. I think it says it all. It's really I wanna really help women rise. And the moment that my business takes off even more, I wanna really give back. I'm already giving back, but on many levels. But still, I would love to create a foundation. I actually have worked for foundations in the past. I've done
wow.
developmental work, and so I also know about the shadow side, so to say, of
Hmm.
foundations. And so I'd love to create my own and to really create something that is sustainable and that really helps people and helps little girls to learn from a very early age on that they are worthy, that they are valuable, that they are wanted and needed, and that they belong, and that all of their parts, also the fierce and the dark and the crazy ones, that all of them is welcome and belongs. And yeah, so that's something that I'm really passionate about.
That's amazing. Have you heard of, if I say the name Oliver Perkovich, does that ring a bell?
No, doesn't.
Is an incredible human being. He's from Australia, and back in 2007, he went of all places to Kabul, Afghanistan, and when the country was still under the
Hmm.
terrible rule of the Taliban. He went in a suitcase. He had three skateboards. He's a skateboarder. So and picture this in your mind. In a time where the country is under the terrible fist of the Taliban, you see this Australian guy skateboarding on the street of Kabul. And long story short, through skateboarding, he started teaching to people, especially to children. And at the time, there was no schools allowed. And especially what he noticed is that yes, the boys were interested, but most importantly, the girls were the one that were really more passionate about it. And at that time, the girls obviously they were not allowed to go to school, forget about any type of sport. So he found a loophole through skateboarding. He was able to teach not only skateboarding to young boys and girls, but most importantly to allow to start schools. And for most of these girls, it would be the first time in their lives that actually attended school. That's incredible for us to even think about
Mm.
that. And he was able to that. Now he's built several big schools around Afghanistan and Kabul, and now in other countries as well, where he teaches not only skateboarding but also other basic things like reading, writing, and and English and all that. So that reminded me of that because that guy, and I had the honor of having him on my podcast back in December. If you have the time, I highly recommend you listen to his story because it's one of the most fascinating story and one of the most
Mm.
wonderful stories ever. And that's something I would love to do because myself, my parents also from Afghanistan. We left when I was
Mm-hmm.
4 years old, way back when the
Mm-hmm.
Soviets invaded the country, and I always wanted to give back and that's why I always had this deep visceral desire to help back because you always have to remember where you come from, no matter where you go. So I always
Yeah.
want to give back, and yeah, that really reminded me of when I was listening to you, especially empowering young girls to be able to get a good education, also to inspire them.
Yeah.
That reminded me of that. So that's a wonderful mission,
Beautiful.
and once you do that, let me know. I would love to help you spread the message in any way, shape, or form because that's something, not just for girls, but education for people, especially. I mean, that's something I'm very passionate about.
Mm. Thank you. Yeah, we'll connect about that because maybe we can really work
Absolutely,
together on that. Yeah.
absolutely, that would be an honor. So yeah, so amazing. Now let's wrap this up with some more fun questions. Now
Okay.
imagine that you have a time machine and you're
Hmm.
sitting face to face with your 18-year-old self, what would be the first piece of advice you would give to your 18-year-old self, knowing all that you know now?
Completely trust your inner voice, no matter
Mm,
what. Yeah. No need to walk into any dependencies. You're strong enough, you're smart enough, you're wise enough, you're guided enough, you can do it. Trust
mm.
yourself.
Lovely. Amazing. Do you have your own podcast?
Not yet. I'd love to do one.
Why
Actually,
not?
it's on my list. It's on my list. It's really because it's already a dance, being a mom of a
Mhm. Oh,
2-year-old and
yes.
having my business with everything else that is going on. So the podcast is something that I definitely would love to do.
Mhm.
I love the idea of podcasts in general. I love to listen to podcasts. So absolutely, but it's just not the time yet, but it's coming. I'm
Absolutely,
positive
yes.
about that.
Yeah. So imagine now that you have your very successful podcast show, and today you have the most special person in the world for you, which is yourself. What would be the first question you would ask yourself? And don't think too much. The first question that comes to your mind. That's the one I want to know.
Now you asked me too quickly. The first question that comes to my mind: are you happy?
Ooh. And
Yeah.
what's your answer?
Yes. More and more and more, more and more and more, and it has to do
Beautiful.
with really taking tough decisions. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, still keeping the time machine. Now, if you could go back to any period of in time, whether in the past and the future, where would you want to go and why?
Hmm. Hmm.
You can go back to the prehistory time. We can go a
Yes,
millions in
as
the
I
future.
would
Anything.
actually, because I've done a lot of research about this prehistoric time when there was supposedly a
Mhm.
time during which the goddess was revered, and matrilineal society
Mhm.
where people lived in relative peace. That's what the historians say. I'd like to go back to that time. I'd like to understand more about this deep feminine wisdom that was present at that time and that we have forgotten. And I'd like to bring that back into this time now.
So would it be the times of Atlantis?
No, that's the time actually. No, it's later than that. It's about 5,000 years ago. It was
Okay.
before, there was a very long time. There was supposedly a time where the women were more in power, than the men, because there was the idea of a great goddess that was revered and worshipped, and where the ancients looked up to the moon and they saw the moon and they imagined the goddess, or the three faces of the goddess were basically the three big faces of the moon. And so they were very in living in a great harmony with nature, in a great harmony with themselves and with others. And so yeah, I would be interested about that, because I believe there's a lot of deep wisdom, especially body wisdom, and yeah, feminine wisdom that got lost when this transition happened from this matriarchal or matrilineal to the patriarchal society.
Mm, okay. When I say the word superpower, what comes to your mind?
Intuition.
Mm. What is your superpower?
Intuition.
Ah, amazing. Yes. And let's say now that God were to talk to you, say, Kathrin, you've been an amazing human being, and I want to reward you for being such an awesome soul. I will grant you one superpower for the rest of your life. Choose any. Which one would you choose?
Deep self-love,
Mm, beautiful.
because I believe everything grows from that, from other connection with ourselves.
Totally. Totally. Absolutely. And if you could ask God one question, what would it be?
Whether he has fun.
Oh, wow. What do you think is going to be his answer?
Absolutely.
I hope so. We all hope so.
I think we would laugh about it. Yeah, you would probably
Absolutely.
laugh, and I would laugh, and I would say, yeah,
He
it's
will tell
it's
you
a
what.
great game that you have invented. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, he will tell you, let me show you. I'm not going to answer. Let me show you. It's going to be even better. Awesome. Listen, Kath, it's an absolute honor and pleasure talking to you. A blast. We can be talking for hours and hours, but I know, we got to keep this short. Do you have any parting tips for anyone that's listening right now?
I think there was already so much. I think it's really about believing that you
Mhm.
can do it, trusting yourself that you can do
Wow.
it, and then just doing it, going
Just
for
do it.
it. Whatever it is that is in your heart, waiting to be done, to be said, to be expressed, to be decided. Just do it. Don't wait any longer. Just go one step today in that direction, one baby step, nothing more. And then tomorrow another step. And you will be surprised how quickly you arrive where you
Absolutely.
thought you can never arrive. Yeah.
Wonderful. And what's the best way to connect with you if someone wants to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram account is womenrising_co, or Kathrin Fox. I guess you find me with my name as well. You can find me on Facebook under my personal profile.
Mm-hmm.
I am Kathrin Fox. Find that on Facebook, and then on my website, of course, you can just drop me a message from my website as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wonderful. That's amazing. Kathrin, I salute you. You're a true leader with a heart. You're a beautiful human being with a wonderful heart and an even more wonderful mission. Keep spreading the awesome word you're doing around the world. Stay safe, stay awesome. God bless you. We'll keep in touch. And yeah, so have a wonderful day. Thank you very much, my friend. Take care. Bye bye.
God bless you too. Bye.
Thank you.